FREE is Faculty for Radical Education and Enlightenment. Woo! Let's give a round of applause for that. Woo! For Radical. Woo! Radical. Okay. So what we are is an interdisciplinary learning community. And what we do is we've done this for about 10, 11 years now. And we bring controversial topics like, is it controversial or not? Human animal. Like, what the heck? I mean, that's a mind bender right there. And we talk about these topics together, and we then, through an interdisciplinary framework, and we have students present, and then at the end, we do a creative assessment. So let me walk you through that real quickly. You have just a regular sheet of paper, just a plain paper in front of you. That's going to be your notes that I want you taking notes on with a pen or a pencil. So get out a pen or pencil, please, so that you can take notes on your plain sheet of paper that's in front of you. Do not take any notes on the papers that have the animal stamps on them yet. And then in the end, we're going to draw dialogue boxes around these. And we're going to take the most important things we learned from our notes, and we're going to put them into the dialogue boxes. And I'll walk you through that later. But because this is interdisciplinary, you need to take notes not just on what's being said verbally, but also you want to pay attention to the numbers. So any numbers that come up, write those down, because we're trying to do a STEAM intersection where we get information from math, from languages, from philosophical insights, from sociological concepts, from political science ideas, and we're trying to get all that together onto one sheet of paper. So you're taking active notes, all right? All right then, so without much further ado, we first have Joy Lynn, who's going to talk about the anthropology information that's on your table, and then we'll get the students going.
Hi, I'm Dr. Joy Lynn, and I teach, among other things, biological anthropology. My students our class meets in the afternoon, so they couldn't be here this morning. So they actually did presentations in class, and you have a flyer from their presentation on your table. So I apologize now because they got to pick their own topics, so they picked some pretty controversial things. So some of you may have a flyer about the origins of HIV. Other teams worked on the bushmeat trade, the exotic pet trade, primate language, and the harmful effects of portrayals of primates in the media, so like Kong Skull Island and things like that. So you're going to have a variety of flyers on your table. My class couldn't be here, okay? Have fun with the rest of it.
And that anthropology information will be information you may want to put into your dialogue boxes at the end for the creative assessment. So really kind of scan that, on the side. All right, we're going to have our first set of presenters come up. Let's have Karina's visual arts students present about animals and art. Come on up, people.
I'm Madison, and I'm in Karina's class, and I'm going to be talking about animals in Egyptian art specifically, and I'm more so going to be going to the importance of dogs in this culture. So, animals in Egyptian art, dogs are the most important. There are many different ones, birds and crocodiles and snakes, but dogs are considered family, and they're considered main parts of Egyptian culture. Okay. Do you want me to, background? Okay.
Let's see you guys write down the word dogs. We're taking active notes, remember? So let's be focused in on that while they're talking. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Dogs. Okay. So in Egyptian culture, dogs lead people through their lives. If someone has a dog in life, that dog, when they die, will follow them through the afterlife, and it'll help them with being able to navigate through the afterlife. And the death of a dog in Egyptian culture, ancient Egyptian culture, is like losing a family member. So whenever a family dog was killed by someone, either on accident or on purpose, that person who killed the dog would either be killed themselves, or their homes and possessions would be destroyed, basically just because they killed someone else's dog, which makes sense. And part of the reason as to why dogs were so important was because ancient Egyptian culture believed that they could see the future. And it was because pretty much dogs only led them in the afterlife, and though they had a whole bunch of other important things. That was the main idea. So there's one main Egyptian deity who's based around a dog. His name is Anubis. He has actually a counterpart that's female, and her name is Anput, but she doesn't do nearly as much as Anubis does. And so Anubis is, it's a human with the head of a jackal, and a jackal isn't technically a breed of dog, but it's considered a dog by them because it looked like dogs at the time. And he is Anubis is the most popular deity. And I'm talking about Anubis and mummification because mummification is considered a form of art. If it was on the previous slide, if you see that dog in the bottom corner, it's actually mummified. And if you look at the intricate patterns, it's actually it's a form of art. So in these two pictures, and that's a jackal sitting on top of King Tut's tomb, and he was considered so important because he was protecting King Tut in the afterlife. And the second picture underneath is Anubis preparing someone for death. And yeah, that's pretty much it for my section of the presentation. And then it's your turn.
Hello, my name is Blake Aldrich. I will be discussing animals involved in sport and hunting. Now, in the medieval era, hunting was considered like a very popular sport and mainly around noble culture. First up, I'll be discussing just the different forms of hunting that were conducted in the medieval era, the more popular forms. So the first one is berkleti, which is basically, it was just like a hunter would go out with his dog dressed in camouflage, typically green, and they go through the forests and hunt deer or rabbit or whatever the chosen prey is for that day. And then on the right, our next hunting type, which is trapping, which was close with Mike. Second was trapping, which was considered to be a lowly form of hunting because it didn't take much skill. People would just go out, they'd place traps, they'd catch animals, they'd go out, and then they'd just kill the animals. And the only group of people that would be popular among was fur hunters, because they'd get out, they'd get the rabbits, their foxes, all that kind of stuff, and then they'd go and they'd sell the fur. The next is falconry, championed by Frederick II of Prussia, who in 1249 wrote a book called The Art of Falconry. And Frederick himself was a noble who championed falconry as a method of hunting popular among nobles. And falconry is kind of self-explanatory, but what it is hunting typically other birds with a predatory bird like an eagle, falcon, etc. And as I said, Frederick II fashioned it into an emblem of nobility and aristocratic pastime. The final one, par 4, is probably the most popular, the biggest. It was like the Super Bowl of hunting, I'll put it that way. So it was extremely popular, it was a very large event, and it took a couple of days to prepare to do it. So I'll just break down the steps. So the night before, hunters would go out and they'd mark trails to find the sleeping areas of different animals. And after they'd gone about, they'd mark their trails, they'd go home for the night, they'd sleep, and get up the next day. They'd all meet together in a big party the next morning. And they'd go down the trails and they'd collect samples, typically feces, and the size of like hoof prints or paws. And they'd take that back to their big group called the brunch, because it'd be a morning thing, they'd be eating, lively conversation, get ready, and they'd take it to the huntsmaster, who would then take all the samples from the different hunters, and he'd go over them and he'd decide what animal they'd go after that day. And once that was decided, they'd go about readying things up, which would involve 3 rounds of 3 greyhounds, and typically about 12 to 24 packhounds would also be readied before they commenced the hunt. And in this picture, you have a group of hunters on horseback chasing after a deer. And if you look, you have the This is really hard to see. You have your pack hounds chasing down the animal. But a specific rule I want to mention real quick before I finish is that the dog wasn't allowed to kill the animal, otherwise that hunter would be severely reprimanded. The idea was for the greyhound to like chase down the animal and get it cornered so that when the hunters got there to be able to kill it, but if the dog killed it, it didn't end well for the hunter. It wasn't okay. Okay. Thank you. This thing doesn't work very well.
Okay. So I'm Alyssa, and my group focused on pets in Western Europe. So this first picture is the 5 eldest children of Charles I of England. And you can see the boy's hand on the big dog relates to dogs being used as companions, and that's what I focused on in my group. So, and then you can see the baby leaning towards the dog with his hand reaching out. And big dogs have always been kind of, not always, but they always have the stigma of like, oh, they're big and not friendly and bad. But as you can see with the 2 boys, you know, it's a sign of familiarity that the baby's like reaching toward it. Because if the dog had attacked it, then it wouldn't have wanted to go towards the dog. And same with the boy with his hand on the dog's head. He wouldn't want anything to do with it. And the dog also looks really calm and just chill with what's going on. And there's another dog that looks like it's about to climb or jump on the girl and who's holding the baby, and she doesn't seem all that distressed by the dog. So what most people would be kind of like, don't jump on me, but they're like, you know, letting him do it. And then the second picture I'm going to talk about is a distinguished member of the Humane Society, and this is Bob, the Newfoundland, and he got stuck in a shipwreck, and he like washed up on a London waterfront. And in the 14 years he was there, he saved 23 people. So he was made a member of the Royal Humane Society, as the title says, and he was awarded a medal and access to food and stuff. And as you can see, he's kind of sitting like a dog would, like if he was on a couch at your home or something, with his paws kind of draped over the thing and his tongue out, and he's really relaxed and calm. And yeah, and that's our group.
So let's continue to take our active notes. The next group is the math group, so you're going to get a lot of numbers on this. I want to see those pens and pencils flying. There are some people just taking massive notes, and that's what we're doing, because what we're trying to do is take the information and process it in so that we can be able to do it in a creative assessment display that will be displayed in the Arboretum exhibit, I believe. No, wrong? Okay, so there's going to be a gallery that it will be displayed. So we want to have rich, detailed notes from which to be able to create our interactive dialogue boxes after on our storyboard. So let's have the math instructors, the math students come on up. Here they are. Now, what do math students have to say about humans and animals? I don't know. So let's figure this out.
Hi, good morning. I'd like to first thank everybody for coming. My name's Connor Marriott. I'm a math major here at TMCC. This is Austin. He's also a student in my class. We're taking Math 126 right now with Blyson Hestius. How many of you guys like Math 126? All right, two people. All right, that's great. We're going to get into a lot of math today. I've prepared a presentation on chickens. You can go ahead and start that now. So my presentation is chickens, then and now. It's kind of a survey of the recent history of chicken production in the United States. So I've got a video for you guys to watch. This presentation was inspired by a new documentary series on Netflix. It's called Rotten. I recommend you watch it. It's pretty interesting. If you're concerned where your food comes from and how your diet will impact your well-being, it's definitely good to learn more about that stuff. So if you would just play the video for me.
The food industry is under full-scale assault. The crisis is global. more of us are wanting to know the source of the food we buy.
If you don't know what's in your food, get out of the business.
In the last 50 years, food has turned into a commodity to be traded like a stock or a bond.
With money to be had, there will always be fraud in the marketplace.
This has consequences beyond description.
What people don't realize is farmers are fading. You used to be able to be this big, happy family that stayed home together, that worked together all the time. That's not the case anymore.
We're aiding and abetting a massive act of theft. People should be concerned about this.
Get all the fish you want, you have no idea where it's coming from. Any of it frozen once, 2, 3, 4 times, all kinds of additives.
At your supermarket butcher, the parts from a single chicken will run you more than $7. To raise that bird, the grower was paid 36 cents.
The supply cannot meet the demand. Consumers are eating a product that is not honey.
Nearly half of food allergy deaths are caused by food from restaurants. Our bodies are rejecting the food we eat. And even the experts don't really know why.
There has to be someone that's willing to keep the fight alive.
This is all about making as big profits as possible.
This room, you're looking at $500,000.
Working hard isn't enough. Now you also have to work smart.
People will start to realize how wrong this is.
Are anybody's hands clean in this whole thing?
Nobody's hands are clean.
If you eat food, this is an issue you need to worry about.
All right, so you guys can see when you're talking about large industries, numbers pop up everywhere. Really, numbers are the way that we can describe change and different processes that are going on. And so first, I'd like to start off just by explaining what a chicken farm looks like. So I would like to talk about what a chicken farm looks like. And my presentation, like I said, it's a survey of the past 100 years or so of chicken production in the United States. So in the early industrial period of chicken production, around the 1800s is when we started really growing a lot of chickens. It was really common to see every household with chickens in their backyard. They would raise chickens for eggs and meat. A lot of people still do this today. So, like I said, it was very common. Every household would have their own chickens. Today, it's very rare, actually, to see somebody who owns chickens, especially in a metropolitan area. And even in some rural communities, a lot of people don't own animals. Chickens are grown at record numbers inside huge buildings larger than this atrium here by the thousands. And I think in that video clip, it did show a little bit of what that might look like. So historically, like I said, chicken was pretty unpopular amongst Americans. It was seen as sort of an inferior quality meal. Beef was really big. People thought that beef was healthier for you. Beef also has a better natural flavor to most people. So chicken wasn't really seen as a primary source of your protein. Also, chickens were a lot smaller 100 years ago. The chickens you see nowadays can be grown upwards of 15 to 20 pounds. Chickens, historically, 100 years ago, you might average a chicken weight at 9 pounds, 10 pounds. So chickens have doubled and even in some cases tripled in size and in quantity. We grow about 3 to 4 times more chickens now than we did, say, in 1910. The reason why it's possible to grow so many chickens as we do, would have to do to a business strategy called vertical integration. And this is where the math gets kind of blurry. Most people think of math as numbers. Math is also a way to describe how business transactions take place and different strategies to achieve your goals in business. Vertical integration is a process where a company will buy up all the stages of production for their product. In chicken, for instance, they will own the feed mill, the breeder, the hatchery, farm, processing, and sales. That's the whole life of the chicken, including the mills that produce the food that the chickens eat. Most companies, some companies like Tyson, other large national companies, they'll own the whole process. And that's what really makes it economical to grow as many chickens as we do. You saw in the video, I think it said something like, the grower of a chicken is paid 7 cents for something like that. 7 cents for the, you guys have better notes than me. All right, 36 cents, and you buy a chicken for $7. So you can see, you know, the way that you're able to buy a chicken for only $7 rather than $25. I don't know how much a chicken's worth, but it's pretty hard to raise them. I've done that. Anyway, the way that they were able to get those chickens so cheap is by cramming them into small rooms and trying to control their environments as efficiently as possible. So I am going to bring a little bit more math into here. Here's some statistics. There's a ton of statistics. The United States Department of Agriculture has an agriculture census every year. And they actually go and they'll survey farmers and growers and cattle production, chicken growers. It's an agricultural census. They take data from everything. And so all this data is public record. You can look it up all online. I got these statistics from the USDA census, like I said. And what we're looking at here is the pounds of chicken meat, I believe. Oh, no, it's population of chickens in the United States in the millions. I know the data is a little hard to see, but it's population compared to time. So we can see on the next slide, we have a graph of that data. And that can, normally when you have a lot of data and a lot of numbers, it can be useful to represent it visually so you can maybe get a better idea of what's going on with the data without having to look at all the nitty-gritty numbers. So we see here in this graph, chicken populations in the US are definitely rising. And I would even claim that they're rising at an exponential rate, which means that not only are we growing more chickens than ever, but we're growing more chickens than we could have ever predicted. In the short span of 100 years between 1910 and 2010, the US chicken population increased nearly threefold. So in conclusion, some things that we can take from observing how chickens are raised. It's not far-fetched to think that your meat quality and your egg quality will lessen with you know, the lower quality of life that the chicken experiences. It would produce more stress hormones in its meat and more stress hormones in its eggs, which will make it have a bad flavor. This isn't in my presentation, but just as a little side note, the other morning I was making an omelet, and my dad bought some jumbo eggs. You've seen those jumbo eggs? They're huge, right? And I was kind of creeped out by the thing. And I was like, I'll eat it. And I cracked it open, and there were 2 yolks staring at me. So, yeah, that might have a little bit to say about where your food is coming from. And with that, I'd like to conclude my presentation. That's all I have for you guys today. Thank you.
That was it? Yeah. Well, wait, just say your name. Say your name. Okay. Just say what your name is. So this is another part of that presentation, and your name is?
I'm Austin, and yeah, so he got all the stuff, so yeah.
Thank you, Austin. Woo! Thank you, Austin. Okay, so I want to make sure that we're continuing to take these awesome notes. I'm going around. There's some people really in it. Look at those notes. Some really dense notes. Let's keep that going because we have the next presenters, and this should be kind of quite interesting. This is the human sexuality class and it's sociology class. So come on up and do your thing. Woo! I mean, the question to ask is there any overlap between animals and humans in sexuality? That's our question.
Hi guys, good morning. So, you wanted to do the intro, yeah? Okay. Oh, gotcha.
Okay. Hi, so I'm Elena Shintani, and this is Gary, and we're from Psych 130, Human Sexuality, and today we're going to be talking about atavistic sexuality. So the definition of atavistic is relating to or characterized by reversion to something ancient or ancestral, so relating to human sexuality. It's looking back on theories that relate to our animal ancestors. We read a chapter from The Naked Ape by Desmond Morris, which is a really interesting book where he compares our primate ancestors to modern humans and how they've influenced the way that we live and the way that we've developed, basically. Yeah.
All right, so we're going to start off with something called the Forest Ape. He was known as a sexual fruit picker. And it's like the earliest kind of human, you know, before there was society or anything like that, like still being out in the jungle. We were a lot more animalistic in the way that we would perceive sexuality. There wasn't a lot of anything as far as like pair bonding or anything like that. And it was kind of just like, you know, our basic like tree-dwelling ancestors. But that time took a long time. We were like that for a while. And the open country ape is where it starts to get really interesting. So it's referred to as the sexual hunter now. And they would view sex in the form of a democracy, almost, because, you know, the males would need to go out and hunt, and they still needed partners. And to avoid, because at this time, a sexual hunter was like a very violent animal. So to avoid kind of confrontation like that, they would share their women. And that just kind of started leading to more of like a pair bonding relationship type deal. And it's actually really rather interesting. So what happened at this point is when we were in the trees before, now we're in the land, like the fields, and we got to start walking upright. And animals inherently are attracted to the bosom or like behind, you know, of other animals. And this started to change for us when we were walking. So there's like a few things that are important, and one of them is breasts. At this point, breasts started to mimic the caboose of other animals to help males become attracted to faces. And then the same thing with lips. Lips flush when you're excited, and this also mimics a vulva. So it's super strange. And now here we are, the modern ape. So pair bonding is already apparent now that it's a pretty big deal. You know, when it started, it was more along the lines of to prevent violence and things like that from others, but now it's more complicated because there's so many institutional you know, things that can influence how your sexuality is perceived by others, I would say. And it's not natural selection. Here you go. Oh, yes. Last but not least, we got some real cool, like, last few things. Ears, right? Your earlobes. Other animals don't have them, and they were made purely for sexual purposes because it becomes sensitive when you get excited, and it flushes with blood. No other animals have that except for humans, and it's because earlier, when it was so important to start the pair bonding, this is why sexuality in humans is so strong and so significant, because it creates like a relationship, and sexuality just has so much to do with that. We have the largest penises out of any primate, so we could be lucky for that. And of all the, well, it's all, pretty much all these things, all this sexuality is just to help stronger pair bonding. So I'm gonna pass it over now to my colleague.
All right, so I'm here to talk about these 3 different stages that the author identified in our chapter. Basically, all other animals and our primate ancestors didn't go through these 3 stages, but as humans developed, it became really important for, like Gary said, pair bonding to develop, which means that humans are monogamous. Typically, not always. But we form courtships and we form family units most of the time. And this started becoming necessary as men would go out hunting. They wanted women to stay faithful. Women wanted a good provider, things like that. So this all starts with pair formation, which is courtship. And we all kind of think of that as the getting to know someone phase, kind of getting comfortable with them. In animals, this doesn't happen. They just go ahead and they're like, hey, you want to whatever, have a kid or whatever. Whereas in humans, it's more of a commitment stage. It's really important in humans that we have proper facial expressions and conversations, and everything is a lot more personal. This can also be affected by things like fear, aggression, sexual attraction, and if you become comfortable enough with someone, you have the ability to go on to the next phase, which is pre-copulatory activity. And I thought that this was really interesting in the chapter, specifically because we are the only animals in the animal kingdom to do this, but it just seems so normal, I guess, in our society when you think about it. It's holding hands, kissing, things like that. We're the only animals and primates that have exposed mucous membranes in our lips, and that's to make them more sensitive and to make our tactile sensitivity stronger, I guess is the best way to put it. It was really important during our evolution for sex to become more of a pleasurable act than just for copulation, procreation, sorry. And that was also to strengthen that pair bonding and strengthen that relationship between 2 people. So after this stage, which can last minutes, hours, we get into copulation. And the animal standard is literally like 10 seconds, that's it. Not enjoyable for the female typically. It's still like that sometimes, no, but that's it. In humans, it's become a lot more common. It happens not just for procreation, and this has helped us to become more in touch with each other, have more interpersonal relationships, and maintain that pair bonding. It's also really interesting, like Gary said, we're the only animals that mate face-to-face rather than rear to face, I guess. In the chapter, there were some statistics mentioned how about 70% of people only participate in sexual acts facing each other, which was kind of interesting. This also ties into when he was saying, we developed hemispherical breasts to mimic the buttocks and things like that. But yeah, overall, we've just turned sexuality into something a lot more pleasurable, personal, and less animalistic, I guess. But do you want to?
Is that the last slide? Okay, so in conclusion, humans are the sexiest animals alive. So, yeah. Thank you, guys.
We're about to have our last panel of students come up here. They're from poli-sci. See the interdisciplinary interaction. Woo, poli-sci. And but before they come up, I want you to turn to each other just real quick, take a little pause where you're talking. Do you think animals should have some sort of Bill of Rights? Do they need that, or what the heck? Should we have an animal bill of rights? So just turn to your partners really quick, just for 30 seconds, and talk. Should we have an animal's bill of rights? I mean, do we need that, and why? Just talk real quickly amongst yourselves. Let's see you talking. Should we have an animal's bill of rights? Turn to a partner and say yes or no. Say yes or no. All right, okay. Well, we have a group that's going to be giving you what they came up with. They thought yes. So here we have from political science, we've got Precious Hall's awesome students, one of them's mine too, coming on up to give the last student presentation before we do our creative art assessment. Come on up.
Hello. My name is Ella Santos. Like she said, we're from Dr. Hall's political science class. I don't know, maybe wanna...
Hi, I'm Michelle.
Hi, I'm Kara.
So yeah, like she said, we did create an animal bill of rights in our class. Collectively, we came up with a couple of things that we think are important for animal rights and animal welfare. The first thing that we came up with is sanctuaries, not zoos. If you want to hit the next slide for me, please. Thank you. So yeah, sanctuaries, not zoos. We think that caging animals, definitely not necessarily the right way to go. A lot of zoos, not okay. So yeah, we came up with an idea for sanctuaries, free roaming, stuff like that, a little bit better for the animal.
Our next thing was to do as minimal lab testing on animals as possible, especially as far as cosmetic testing. It's unnecessary, as we already have so many different cosmetics that don't require it, so we don't understand why all of them need it if there's possibilities of us doing it without any. And then as far as medical testing, we thought of how we should bring it more into computerized technology and testing it on computers and less on animals, just for the safety of them. And then we also included farming, because there's a lot of inhumane treatment on animals during the farming process, and we thought that animals shouldn't be thought of as property during the process and as actual animals and beings, and that if you're going to kill the animal and how you treat it, it should be in a humane way. And then the third one was not to disturb the natural order of things. So if an animal is naturally going extinct, to let it happen, that's Mother Nature doing its job as usual. But if it's an animal that we're causing to go extinct from hunting it too much or moving it out of the wrong territory, then we should, as humans, fix what we've done wrong with messing with the natural order.
And that brings us to number 4. Which is if you do feel the need to hunt, we would require you to use the whole of the animal. So whether that means consuming all the meat or preserving its skin, we would just require you to, use the whole animal. Don't be wasteful.
Also, we discussed adoption rights for animals. I know that there are a lot of people who adopt animals who don't necessarily take care of them, so we discussed putting laws or sanctions in place for keeping animals who are adopted safe, making sure that they get to actual good homes and are not just being abused in that light.
We also have all animals deserve a cruelty-free life. And if this is infringed upon, we require you to be registered to an animal abuse registry, along with progressive punishment if you reoffend. And we define cruelty as malicious intent.
The last thing that we came up with is there's definitely a fundamental difference between abuse and neglect, and punishment will reflect this difference. So what we mean by that is there's there's abuse and then there is neglect in the sense that there's a difference between like forgetting to let your dog out once or twice and then again, like she said before, malicious intent. And laws would be created based on the definition of malicious intent or not. Yeah, and that's what we came up with as a class. And yeah.
I just love having you students present. I mean, really. These students got up here and talked in front of you about information they're learning in their classes, and I'm really impressed with that. So let's give them all a round of applause. So the next, we're going to have the furries come on up and introduce, and then we'll start the arts assessment. And does everyone know what furries are? Does anybody know what furries are? Well, okay, a few. So we'll see if the furries want to talk about who they are a little briefly. Yes? Yes, no? Yes. Let's go forward with the furry.
Thank you. So, my name is Cry. Hello. I am a twin-tail lawnbax. Lots of questions on furries, real quick. We identify as fursonas, which are anthropomorphic animals. We do have feelings, and we like to resonate with our animal counterparts. Mine just happens to be a cat, which, you know, I'm just so cute, and enough full of myself. There are hundreds of us in this one county, and there are even more of us all over the world. Now, furries tend to have a negative stereotype. I'm here to tell you that it is not true. So, we do a lot of nonprofit organizations. We help fundraise, you know, autism awareness, all sorts of animal type foundations. I was just hanging out with a few snakes earlier today, and one of them got stuck in my hair. So, if you have any questions regarding a furry, just ask us. We don't bite-ish. And it was really nice to come out and just see all of you people all interested in the welfare of these animals. It really does touch my heart that so many people do care. And on behalf of the furry community, thank you.
Okay, so now we're ready to do our assessment piece, and what we're going to do is you're going to take your let's see, I guess I have mine back there, but that's okay. You're going to see, do you guys see the stamped storyboards, or they will turn into storyboards in the middle? Yeah, could you hold that up, that storyboard? Could I just have one? Candace's art students, are they here, any of them here? Yay, this table, these people over here, carved these themselves and stamped them, printed them on here themselves for you. And these are humanimal kind of creature humanimals that they created. And what I'm going to have you guys do as soon as we get started on this is take the information on your tables plus your notes, and you're going to draw first a big dialogue box. In crayons. And then what you're going to do is you're going to write with your pen or pencil a dialogue happening between the creatures on your storyboard based on the most important information that you have. What we're trying to do with this assessment is bring it out of the whole standardized test, fill in the bubbles. We're trying to make some assessment, your learning, meaningful and creative. So you'll group up in pairs or in threes. There are 3 of these at each table. And I would like for everyone to fill these in and have a very controversial or animated, yeah, literally animated animals, discussion happening between the creatures on your storyboard, kind of cartoon style. So you're going to draw a big circle dialogue box, and then you're going to write your information in there, and you need to agree amongst each other, what was the most important thing you learned? That's what you're writing about, the most important things you learned. And the one requirement I have on this, besides drawing the dialogue box around it and collaborating as a group on each one of these, is I would like for you to have one number somewhere in there. Some number that you heard from the math people or maybe some of the other people. I don't know if the furry person, human person, animal person gave a number, but if she did or the cat did, then you could put that in there. So real briefly, we're going to have Joy Lynn again explain what some of her content is from her students, and then we're going to let you have the remaining time to do these. And when you're done, we'll come around and collect them. But we really want you to do a good job on this because they're going to be displayed here in a gallery. So we really want you to take some pride in what you're doing, okay? So here's Joy Lynn.
Hello again. I didn't say too much the first time about my student slides because I wanted to make sure we stayed on schedule, but you got some great numbers on these as well. So one of my students' teams, and some of you may have this slide, on the origins of HIV and what that has to do with primates and also the hunting, bushmeat in particular. Some of you may have this slide about the bushmeat trade, which is a huge international issue right now. And I'm from New York, and there are a ton of African immigrants, particularly in the Bronx, that are driving part of this trade, and a lot of this comes through JFK, as well as Charles de Gaulle in Paris. So there's some numbers on here about the extent of the bushmeat trade, and that right now is the biggest threat to primate extinction. I should say non-human primates. This slide is about laboratory research, and this builds on what Dr. Hall's team was talking about with an Animal Bill of Rights, and what my students actually focused on what happens to a lot of the primates after the research is over. And then there's some great numbers on this slide as well, so the exotic pet trade and how big a business that is, and yeah, that's Justin Bieber with his exotic pet, and how damaging it is to a lot of the animals, not just primates also. And then another team did a fantastic presentation on the power of media and stereotypes about primates, so things like Kong Skull Island, Planet of the Apes, and that we need to become more aware of what primates are actually like and how threatened they are. We may lose all of them in the wild in my lifetime, and I'm pretty old right now, so. And last one's a little bit more lighthearted. The group that did primate language actually has a little activity for you on the bottom to practice some of these gestures with yourself and see how well you speak primate. So there's some good data on those slides too, and I can answer any questions if you have them. So have fun. Go draw.
Sorry, and just really quickly, the veterinary technology students put together some materials as well. So on each table, there's kind of a different topic. A lot of them are on therapy animals, but there's also some articles about like spaying, neutering, and how we can help animals in shelters to relax and calm down. So that material is on your tables as well to utilize.
And finally, my education students are sprinkled throughout to facilitate and to make sure that you guys are on task. These are our future teachers, high school, elementary school teachers, so they know how to kind of move around the table, make sure everyone's on task, that the learning behaviors are happening, that the students are providing their best information. So there's an education person at each table. Raise your hand if you're an education person, please. Okay, you see them? And we have two at one table. Maybe one of you guys can come over here. And we're going to spread around. And you have about 15 minutes, more or less, 15 to 20 minutes to do a really good job. All right, so go to it. Dialogue boxes, storyboards, woo!
It's not educational.
That's all right. Education isn't about facts, it's about process.
All right, I got this cute fish here. It says to the seahorse, how does a seahorse quickly get to places? He scallops. This one says, and then the retort is, did you hear about the goldfish who went bankrupt? Now he's a bronze fish. And he just says, I don't get it. And also 36 cents.
Come on up and present. Anyone else feel good about it? You get a t-shirt. Come on up. Come on, you guys. Okay, my education students have to prompt. Education students, let's prompt. Prompt one up. Prompt one up, education student. Prompt them up. This is part of what you're doing. Facilitate them up. Let's get another one. Woo! We got another one.
As of 2010, there's one chicken in the United States for every one person.
You get a t-shirt. All right, I'm coming around. I'm doing this. Yes, I am. Here I come. Don't run, don't run. Anyone ready? Anyone ready? Huh? This one right here. Stand on up. Stand on up.
Look at my earlobes and my flushing skin color. Look at my voluptuous breasts and my mucous lips, all to help me develop a stronger pair bonding. Well, good thing you aren't a chicken. Humans consume 96 pounds per year. They mass produce them, increasing their population from 92.4 million in 1910 to 321 million in 2015.
Now that's what we're talking about. That's the kind of STEAM assessment we're talking about. I'm coming around. I'm coming around. Is there one here? Is there? Oh, we'll go. Oh, great.
We ended up drawing another character. Here, hold that. Yep. So the conversation is, I gotta get out of the way. Just flew over that chicken warehouse. I wonder what's happening in there. It's totally whack, bro. What? Have you been in there? Nah, bros. Yeah, I heard it from the Chicken Joe over there. And we drew Chicken Joe from Surf's Up. And it said, yeah, bro, chickens are making farmers only 36 cents and they cost $7. They're being mass produced and then slaughtered, bro. It's not cool.
All right, I'm coming around, and you get to have a T-shirt once you do it. Come on up, and let's give one more round of applause, just as we're starting to wrap it up in the next 5 minutes, for the art students that made these creatures. They hand carved them. Let's give them a round of applause. Woo!
You guys, you should stand up. The ones that made the stamps. Stand.
Stand. The ones that made the stamps, stand. Woo! Woo-hoo-hoo! All right, let's get one or two more, and then we can wrap this up, and my students should collect them. So one or two more. Is there a good one over here? Oh, right here, right here. Stand. Let's do it.
Peacock. They're all cute. They're cute. Hold close, right underneath you. Okay, so we have a peacock, and the caption is, "Hey, my eyes are up here, buddy." I don't know. I got a green light, man.
Is this right? Is this working? Okay.
Works for you, not for me, apparently.
Just say it one more time.
Okay, so the peacock again. The caption is, "Hey, my eyes are up here, buddy." Because he has eyes on his tail. That's the joke.
Say, whoa! I think that we could operate a stand-up comedy session here. Okay, let's do one or two more. Just one or two more. Come on, my students. Come on, some student. Ooh, over here. All right, go ahead. I'll hold it up, and you can speak. I'll hold it up, and you can speak. Stand up, stand up.
Okay, so the dragon is saying, "I am fire, and I am destruction." The dog says, "Okay." And then the dinosaur man is saying, "This might be random, but the chickens are getting fatter." But then and then the dragon acknowledges 36 cents. Just no. But then the dinosaur man decides to go to change the subject by saying, "That is what is out of this world? That is out of this world. Get it? I'm a dinosaur."
Okay, we've got one last one. and then we will have my students collect them, and we will have had another successful free. Is it over? Oh, okay, thanks. Okay, great. So where is the other one? Oh, over here. Yay! Okay, I'll hold it up. You can speak. Come on. You speak.
Okay, so I don't know what these are, but it says, "Come on, let's do it." And she says, "It's all about courtship, my dude."
Woo! We're getting crazy and free. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're wrapping it up. Make sure that you're signing in the sign-in sheet. You have been part of another free. There's over 100 students here. Seems like maybe 120 from all these different. Wait a second. Okay, there is a survey at your table. Please fill the survey out and make sure you sign in if you need credit from your points, and leave the dialogue boxes, storyboards on the table, and my students will collect them. Thank you, everyone. And the 11 o'clock class will come next for our next speaker. All right, let's give ourselves a round of applause. Come on, I think we deserve it. Woo!